coming to you from his new podcasting studio with the same great organic living and gardening advice. Here he is, my dad, the dirt doctor, Howard Garrett.
Okay, it's time for a podcast, so let's get one going here. Have a little tea, my usual lately, juniper foliage, no berries. I'm out of berries right now, and the nettles tea, and there's also a little bit of edible flowers in here, a few dianthus and a few pansies I tossed in just for good measure. It's a good tea. Give it a shot if you haven't already. There's not a new SPCA dog today on dirtdoctor.com. It's the same really cute dog we talked about last week with the great big tall ears. Go check that out, and also look at some of the dogs from the past that haven't gotten adopted yet. And we appreciate your help with all of that stuff. We're going to do Q&As today. We've got a whole bunch of questions that have come in. Won't be a real long podcast. I want to just go through the things that are coming in and talk about some of the in Howard's Garden stuff for you. One book that I've mentioned a couple of times, and I keep forgetting to bring one that's open, not in cellophane, and that's the Herb book. The Herb book is probably the one book we've got that flies under the radar. You can see it's a big book. It's got a lot of information. It not only covers culinary and medicinal plants, but also edible landscaping and things like that. And just to give you an example, those 2 pages are all about comfrey. You know, I talk about comfrey a lot. I use it as a good looking perennial. I use it to throw the old leaves in the compost pile to stimulate biological activity. And I use slurries of it on little moles and tags and things on the skin. It's good for a lot of things. I had a little side bunion on my foot recently. Instead of a bunion on the inside part of your foot, I had the outside part. I don't know what that's called. I don't know if that's a bunion or not, but anyway, I had bashed it real hard and it was hurting. And I soaked my feet in a combination of comfrey and apple cider vinegar. And the pain just went away completely like that. So if you've got some pain issues, you might give that a try. Mix the comfrey with some apple cider vinegar. That combination seems to work really well for relieving pain. Let's see. Let's get to the questions. The first question, we had some people ask about orchids, and wanted to know about repotting them after they've bloomed once. And one of the things that most of the real good orchid growers, like my friends in San Antonio, Bob Webster and Roberta, they recommend is to get rid of the peat moss, which we always are recommending. We don't like peat moss at all. It's antimicrobial. But a lot of the orchids are coming from China, and they're coming in peat moss. And once the flowers have faded, repotting the orchid in bark would be the thing to do. And there are bark products at the nurseries, garden centers, that are specifically for orchids. And even though the bark is obviously really well aerated and everything, you keep enough moisture in there for the orchids to do really well. So if you haven't tried that already, give it a shot. Had a real interesting note that came in from somebody about stumps. In fact, they sent me a photograph of what they were doing. They asked me if I'd like to see it, and it's kind of an interesting approach. If you have listened to me or read any of my stuff, you know that basically I recommend 2 methods of stump, well, 3 methods of stump removal normally. One is if you've got an arborist, a tree care company that's working on your property, using a stump grinder after the tree's cut down, using a stump grinder to grind the stump down into the ground is the best way to go. Totally get rid of it once and for all. scatter the sawdust around, throw some native soil and compost into the hole that you've created. And that's probably my favorite way to go. The other ways are to drill holes in the stump, as large a holes, as many as you can get around to doing, and then fill those holes either with molasses, some kind of sugar, and then cover the stump with shredded tree trimming. Some people will put a piece of carpet over it and really hold the moisture in, but I usually just put shredded tree trimmings and let it rot. The sugar stimulates the rot and speeds up the process, and that works pretty well. And it's probably the one of the easiest ways to go. It takes a little time for it to do any good. The other way is after drilling the holes, you put saltpeter in the holes, which is potassium nitrate. And that's available out there in the stores, but you got to be careful. You look for something that is going to be called stump killer or stump treatment or something along those lines. But what you want to do is don't just look at the brand name and what the product is called. Look in the active ingredients and look for potassium nitrate. And it works really well. If you fill the holes that you've drilled in the stump with potassium nitrate, water them down, throw mulch over the stump, and just wait, it'll kill the stump pretty quickly. It won't make it decay quite as fast as the molasses will. So a combination of the two, I guess, could work. I've never tried that, but I'm sure that would work okay too. What a lot of people do, and this is a cool technique, but you got to be careful about it because we're talking about something that can cause a fire. And that is after you have drilled the holes in the stump and you have put the saltpeter, potassium nitrate, into the holes, then you get a barbecue grill going or wherever you want to do it and get some barbecue briquettes going and nice and red and blazing, and carefully put them on top of the stump. They will smolder down into the stump and completely eliminate it. Again, you're dealing with fire, so be careful with that idea. This friend of ours that sent me a question on Ask Howard on the new website on dirtdoctor.com has a different technique, and it's an interesting one. Number one, on a stump that he wants to treat, number one, he uses the tip of a chainsaw and cuts slots across the stump. Number two, then at 90 degrees, he does it again. And with each cut, the tip of the saw is pressed into the stump so it cuts below the ground level, never touching the dirt. In the end, the result is small squares that can be knocked off. If you want a couple of pictures, he said, yeah, let me know. And I've got these pictures. You probably can't see them that easily here. You might be able to see that. But I will put those on our socials. And that's a neat technique. All those work. What I usually do, because I'm just curious about it, is do the drilling and do the saltpeter if I can find it. Sometimes it's available in the stores and sometimes it's not. But anyway, that's how to handle stumps. Oh, and by the way, one other thing on stumps, when you're trying to get rid of small trees like hackberries or Chinese privet or something like that, and the trunk is not big enough, the stump and the trunk and the resulting stump's not big enough to drill very many holes in, you can do it a little different way. Get a big ball-peen hammer or a hatchet or something and just smash the small stump, and then apply the sugar, the molasses, or the saltpeter to the smaller stump, and that works pretty well too. So give that a shot. We had an interesting question about pruning, and the pruning came from a friend that had gotten a recommendation from a tree care company, and they recommended doing heavy pruning to the canopy. And it's a tree that was in some stress. It had some trouble from whatever reason. They did mention that the tree was in stress a little bit. The tree care company recommended pruning the canopy severely to encourage more growth and get the tree back into healthy shape. What's true is just the opposite of that. What you want, if you have a tree in stress, you want to leave as much foliage on the plant as you possibly can, because that's how the food gets built to regenerate the root system. Now, when you have a stressed tree, of course, you need to do the sick tree treatment. If it's in stress, there's something wrong. So do the whole sick tree treatment, soil away from the base of the tree, and then the organic amendments, compost, rock minerals, and sugars. But pruning is rarely good for the plant unless there's so much weight on one side it would tear, rip a limb. If what would be some other good reason to prune? If you had such a heavy canopy that the limbs were, a whole bunch of limbs were rubbing against each other and that sort of thing, causing some problems, doing some trimming to the canopy might make some sense. But in general, trees need to be pruned for something that's for your benefit, not for the trees. Rarely, and you don't want to hear this from people that are maintaining your trees, you don't want to hear that they recommend pretty severely thinning out the canopy on an annual basis. That's a really bad thing to do. If you do that, you're going to get little sucker growth off of the limbs where there's too much foliage removed, and you could cause some sunburn. In some cases, you can cause a bunch of problems. Plus, you're wasting your money, and it's not really good for the tree. So thinning out the canopy for your benefit. If you need to lift the canopy a little bit, if it's hitting people in the head walking down the sidewalk, or if it's hitting the car, or if the tree's really out of balance one way or the other, trimming to fix that. Or if there's some other reason, if there's a view that you want to make better, doing some pruning to the tree to improve a view or to open a view can sometimes be a real good thing to do. Real strong lifting, trimming the limbs off of the trunk of the tree and really extending the tree's trunk up before any limbs go out, that, especially in certain trees, is stressful to the tree and can actually kill some trees. See, I've seen cedar elms be killed by people doing too much of that lifting. What they do that for, in a lot of cases, is incorrectly thinking that that'll give them more light to the ground to grow grass. And we tell people over and over again, you're either going to go grow grass or you're going to grow trees, because lifting the canopy really doesn't do that much for blocking the sun coming in, except for in the morning or in the evening when the sun's angle is real low. Plus the fact you still have the competition of the roots of the tree with the turf. So if you really want turf, the only way to go that works is to remove some trees. Lifting them, cutting away lower limbs, hurts the tree. And they'll sometimes live for a while, but you can tell that they're lethargic, they're not growing as well, and you know that you've created a situation where stress is in the tree. And then other things can happen. Other parasites, insects, diseases, mistletoe, classic example of something that can come along when you do that. So anyway, remember that if a tree has a bunch of pretty foliage and a pretty canopy, it wouldn't have that if it didn't want it. So thinking you need to help by severely thinning the canopy out or lifting it, the severe thinning is called gutting. The severe cutting the lower limbs off is called lifting. And if you cut a whole lot of the inside of the canopy out and just leave foliage out at the ends of the limbs, that's called lion tailing, and that's terrible. Looks silly, and it's bad for the tree as well. So Go to dirtdoctor.com and go into arborists in the library. And if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area especially, we have a list of arborists that we recommend there that don't do the bad stuff and do the things that we recommend. And you can also look at the under products on the home page. It'll give you a list of businesses in different cities in two different ways. One is retail stores that sell any organic products, and two is the listing of contractors that at least do some organic techniques. So it gives you a place to start to call around and see if you can find somebody to help you. Okay? Okay, I had some questions about raised beds. Do I recommend galvanized metal or plastic or cedar, or what do I recommend? What I recommend myself, and what most of the people that do community gardens have had really good luck with, is rough cut cedar. Rough cut cedar, either in 2x8 or 2x10 or even 2x12, depending on how much you want to spend. The wider the better, because you get deeper beds and that sort of thing. But most of the community gardens are giving us reports that they're getting 8 to 10 years out of rough cut cedar. So yeah, galvanized metal, tin, corrugated metal, some steel. You can buy steel these days. It's being used in landscaping a lot. Those things will last longer, but they're going to cost a whole lot more in the beginning. So you can weigh the pros and the cons of that and go whichever way you want. As far as being good for growing organic produce, herbs and vegetables and things like that, either one is fine. If you use any kind of treated material, whether it's treated metal or if it's a treated wood, you need to line the inside of the walls of your raised bed with some kind of a plastic or fiberglass or something like that. That's the toxins won't move a whole lot laterally in the soil, but if the roots go over and hit a wall that has paint or stain or something toxic, or if it's a treated lumber or something like that, yeah, the roots of food crops can pull those toxins right into the plant for sure. Okay, ant help. I think we talked about this last week, but once again, fire ants. Foolproof thing is to put out dry molasses on the site at 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet. If you have individual mounds that you want to treat that are left over, or that's all you had to begin with, take Garrett juice, take the Garrett juice, whichever. You can use commercial products like the Garrett Juice Pro, or you can make it yourself. Our formula is on the website, dirtdoctor.com, and in my books and on the online courses all the time for you. But take the Garrett juice ready to use, add 2 ounces of orange oil to it per gallon, stir it up, shake it up, and pour it right in the center of the mound. And that's how you can kill out individual mounds. Also, you can put out beneficial nematodes. Beneficial nematodes at this time of the year I recommend anyway, because they control a whole lot of other pests as well. And trichogramma wasps. A tip for you on where to get them. Nurseries, garden centers, feed stores, hardware stores tend to have nematodes that are in a dry form. They're in vermiculite or some kind of mixture, and they work okay, but what works a lot better is if you get the nematodes that come on blue sponges, and they're moist, and more of them are live, and you'll get better control. The mail order company, we don't have anything to do with this company, but they kind of dominate it right now, the sale online of this beneficial nematode on the blue sponge. You may have heard me talk about that. That's the way to go. That's ideal. It costs a little bit more, but you're going to get a whole lot more effect from fleas and ticks and termites and grub worms and everything else that has one of its life cycles in the ground if it's a pest, which is most pests. The other beneficial you need to be releasing right now as leaves start to emerge on plants is the trichogramma wasps. Now, trichogramma wasps, you buy little 1-inch tabs or you buy strips, It looked like sandpaper, and all the little bumps on the sandpaper are eggs of moths. And out of those moth eggs come the trichogramma wasp that flies over and lands on and parasitizes moth egg, preventing that from becoming a caterpillar and eating your plants. Trichogramma wasps help you with all caterpillar problems that are out there. Okay, so nature's creation, and probably the best place where you get trichogramma wasps, you can get them from a lot of different places, but the company down on, for anybody in the country, the company down on the Texas coast in Eagle Pass called Cunifin has an excellent quality trichogramma wasp, very reasonably priced, and if you want to buy some mail order, that's probably what I'd recommend. Cunifin, Kunafin, and the nature's control for the beneficial nematodes is just nature's control. Okay, it used to be under another name and another company, and it has changed names. So if you've got anything in your files that's telling you to buy the sponge from, what was the company was called Hydrotech or Hybrid something with an H, but it's now called, the owner is called Nature's Control. Fungus gnats, question about that. Fungus gnats, you eliminate if you've got them in the sink, which can happen with orange oil. Pour some orange oil down in your sink, let it sit for a while, and then flush it on through. If you have fungus gnats coming out of your plants, that means that you're probably keeping the plants a little too wet. Cut back on your watering, go a little bit longer in between waterings, and also put some BTI, Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. That's the same stuff that we use to control mosquito larvae. It's available out there. Summit is the company we work with that just does a beautiful job with the BTI products and with BT products and all kinds of things, but they really specialize in the BTI and helping with mosquito control. But the fungus gnats are controlled with the same thing. The only other insect that the BTI controls is black flies. So you've got a very limited number of insects that the BTI controls, and it doesn't hurt all the beneficials at all. So that's the way to get rid of fungus gnats. Quit watering quite so much too. If you water a little bit less, let the plant dry out, the top few inches in potted plants and things like that. Don't let them wilt or you'll get in trouble, but just go a little bit longer between waterings and you'll have good luck to get rid of the fungus gnats. Let's see, what else? Mistletoe, we continue to have a lot of questions about mistletoe, and it's a simple answer. I'll just say it real quick. It's doing the sick tree treatment, exposing the flare, and doing the rest of the sick tree treatment, which is to apply the amendments that we recommend as the basic organic program, the compost, rock minerals, and the sugars. Okay. I had an interesting question about Milorganite. Milorganite is a biosolids product. It's made from human sludge situation, and Milorganite up in Milwaukee. I've actually visited with them. I went to see them. They tried to get me to promote their products, and we actually tried to figure out some way to do it for a while, but they brought up the problem with it. And the question I got that just came in recently was, what about treating seed with Milorganite? They had apparently run into more than one article online, and maybe somebody recommended treating seed with Milorganite before, getting good germination and all. I don't know, that might work some. My problem with Milorganite and all biosolids products is something that they brought up themselves when I was with them. They said, and I already knew really, that Milorganite really doesn't have a problem with pathogens in the product or with heavy metals. They have a really good system of controlling all that. But the thing that they agreed and brought up to me before I even had a chance to bring it up which I was going to do, was that they don't have a way to control the pharmaceuticals. And guess whose country is using way too many pharmaceuticals? We are. So they haven't figured that out yet. Hopefully they will someday, because there's an awful lot of material that's biosolids, in cities all around the world that needs to be reused. But as long as it's loaded with pharmaceuticals and those pharmaceuticals can't be neutralized, that is a problem. And so we need to stay away from it. Aphids are coming up. Getting still a lot of questions about aphids. The best thing for your vegetable crops and your herbs is to spray something that's not going to kill the lady beetles, ladybugs, and the green lacewings and the beneficials that are in the garden. So your first step is to use the first step of my soft pest control, and that is to spray something that's a repellent, not a killing pest control. And the best two on the market are garlic and garlic pepper tea, and they'll help you with the aphids really well. If you've got aphids, you just keep coming back and keep coming back. You can use the tougher things that kill, the orange oil at 2 ounces per gallon of water, or the spinosad. Follow the label directions on the product, and they will help you. But just getting the plant healthy is going to help get rid of the aphids to a great degree. Sometimes aphids are around on a plant just because of a temporary stress. It doesn't have to be a major kind of a stressful condition that caused them to come. It can simply be that the weather went from nice and cool to 85 degrees one day. You get some ramped up and ramped down kind of conditions with the weather, and those changes can sometimes cause a temporary stress in the plants. And when that happens, the repellents like the garlic pepper tea are by far the best way to go, because they're not there because there's a serious problem. They're just there because there's a temporary change in the weather, and it created a temporary stress in the plant. Okay? All righty, let's see what I have missed here and need to do for you. If you haven't already, we're right in the middle of planting. The cool season stuff can certainly go in. We planted a bunch of petunias at the house. The dianthus are going in now. Johnny jump ups, violas, pansies, all the cool season things can go in. And most of those plants are edible plants. So using the organic program is really an important thing for you to do. We talked about the herbs for Texas. That's the featured book this week. And by the way, this is the only book that currently we have available that we can sell you. We ended up buying out the inventory when they were making some changes at the publishing house. And so we have some of these herbs for Texas. So if you're interested in buying one from us and getting a signed edition from me, send me an email. Just send it to howard@dirtdoctor.com, or you can use the Ask Howard feature right on the home page. It's the button right beside YouTube. By the way, the easiest way for you to find these podcasts now is to click the YouTube button right on the home page of dirtdoctor.com, right up at the top, and it'll take you to the whole listing of videos and all we've done with YouTube. You have to sometimes scroll down to find the latest podcasts. But there's a whole bunch on that homepage right now. If you haven't looked at it yet, do that. If you haven't already, one of the first things I recommend people to do when I give talks, like I'm going to be doing one in Waco tomorrow, we will talk about things that are current, but we'll also talk about things that are coming up and where you can get more information. And the more information is now really easily available on the website on dirtdoctor.com. We've got a video on the homepage, by the way, of me doing the sick tree treatment to a lacy oak in the front yard of our office here in the art studio. So you can see that. But the one that I tend to not recommend often enough is the one that's on the homepage that's called the Fabulous Tree Slideshow. And there are 3 columns of words in 2 different places, and all those words or phrases are buttons. And you click on the button, it takes you to some of the main features of the website. And one of them is called the Fabulous Tree Slideshow. It's a slideshow that has cut lines under every photograph, so you can sit and watch the sick tree treatment, the basic organic program, my recommended planting techniques, about 5 or 6 stories at least about trees that are really unusual that I've had something to do with, and we brought them around. I'll tell you the whole story from start to finish. And then there's also some trees in there that I have just met, like the big Montezuma cypress in Oaxaca, Mexico. So check all that out right on the homepage of dirtdoctor.com. If you're interested in taking one of my classes, you can click on the class button. It'll be right up in the top of the homepage that changes photographs there, and it'll come up that the online classes are available if you click on that button. So it's real easy to find the stuff now with the new website. Okay, we are in that window now. Speaking of in the garden, in Howard's garden, we are starting March here, and we're definitely in the window now to get everything planted and get the major fertilization done. We call it soil improvement rather than fertilization, because we're using organic products that build the life in the soil. You could have done it back in January. We start recommending it there for people all around the world, early spring, or late winter when things start to break. But for a lot of you, it's still cold out there now, and for people even like here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, things are starting to leaf out a little bit, and you're not out of the window here. You can go ahead, if you haven't done it, go ahead and do the first organic fertilization of the year. If you're just getting started, you need to do it 3 times a year. Once late winter, early spring, second is early summer, June-ish, and then the third is in the fall, September or October. Once you've been doing this organic program for a while, you can pull back. You can pull back and do 2 a year. Some people have been organic for a long time and have gotten their soil health really in outstanding shape. They fertilize or do the soil building treatment once a year. That's all they do. And then even the commercial people will do 1 dry application of something a year. It might be dry molasses, it might be compost, it might be one of the organic blend fertilizers, and then they'll spray Garrett juice on a monthly basis. If the budget doesn't allow a monthly spraying, spray once a quarter. Some people spray 1 time. And you get you have a lot of flexibility with the organic program. And once that soil starts to become healthy and be rich in fungus and bacteria and nematodes and protozoa and all the wonderful things that we want to have in the soil, and you're not changing it, or you're not stomping on it and having somebody drive through it, in other words, compacting the soil. In other words, once you get the soil in pretty good shape, it stays that way, and you have to apply much fewer amendments and soil building products to keep it there and keep your production up. It's one of the ways the great cost savings comes in. The other one is when you do it, especially on a project of any scale, whether it's landscaping or a farm or a ranch or whatever you're dealing with, once you are totally organic and you're using nothing but organic inputs and stimulating biological activity, and you have completely quit using the high nitrogen synthetic fertilizers and the terrible pesticides like Roundup and 2,4-D and dicamba and all those kind of things, you will, without question, save a bunch of money on water. The water savings, we've seen it on several projects, has been documented to be as high as 40 to 50% by going with the organic techniques. Let's see what else I've got on here that I need to tell you about. I got some interesting things going on. I'll show you in some short videos that we'll put on Facebook and things like that. I've got the same thing that's happened the last few years on my rusty black haw viburnums, one of the native ornamental trees that I like so much. I've got one in the backyard near the dog run in the greenhouse, and I've got one that's a little bit bigger in the front yard. And the one in the front yard's in full bloom right now. Beautiful white flowers all over it. And the one in the backyard that looks as healthy as it can be has never had a flower on it. So who knows? Another thing that's in bloom in my garden, if you haven't tried, it's a wonderful plant, especially for, zone 8 and 7 and, the areas that I'm living in, Dallas-Fort Worth area, a little bit colder and a little bit warmer. You can plant a native shrub called Agarita. Agarita is one of my favorites because it's got something pretty going on all the time. It's an evergreen. And right now it's got yellow flowers all over it, and then later on it'll have little red berries all over it, which you can make jellies and jams or a homemade wine or something like that. They're not that great to eat. Wildlife love them, so they're good from that standpoint. And then the foliage is evergreen. It only has one negative, well, two, a little bit. The other one's not a huge negative. It could be positive for you long term. And it's a very slow growing shrub. Doesn't grow very fast at all, just a few inches a year. The other one is that it's well armed. And when you are trying to prune it or get something out from under it or harvest some of the red berries, wear a long sleeve shirt and be careful because it will eat you up. It is a well armed plant. Agarita, native to this part of the world. Let's see, freeze miser. I'm kind of making a wild guess right now that we're about through with the cold weather. So you can do this either way. I've taken a couple of my freeze misers off hose bibs and moved them because I'm using the hoses more often, moving things around. So taking your freeze misers off, bring them inside, put them in a drawer somewhere where you can find them for next year. The freeze miser will last you year after year after year and help prevent freezing for you. It's a little simple device that when the temperature in the device gets to be 37 degrees, your hose bib or your faucet starts to drip and you never have to worry about freeze damage. You can leave them out going on into some hot weather. I've done it, forgetting to do it, but it's probably best for them to work really well for you next year again if you take them off as soon as we're really through with cold weather, and we may be. Things are really coming out right now, but just keep them in a drawer inside the house somewhere or in the garage, just someplace where they're protected to some degree. Let's see what else is going on. I had a bunch of people at the last personal appearance I was at asking me about horseherb. We've planted horseherb in the front yard here as the turf, as the substitute for turf. It's too shady now to have turf grass because I've got a little mini arboretum out there. If you ever come over to see my art studio or see the little mini arboretum, we can show you the whole thing. It's a collection of my favorite trees. Residential size property, and you can see, I can tell you about the length of time they've all been in place and show you some interesting things. For example, a big tooth maple and a caddo maple were planted at the same time. And I like both those trees, but the big tooth maple is almost twice as big as the caddo maple. Both are beautiful, both have wonderful summer foliage that rarely gets any cosmetic damage even. And then the fall color of both of them is spectacular. The big tooth maple is a little bit more spectacular. It has puts on a golden glow most years for me. In some areas, the big tooth will get a red color, but they're great. But anyway, if you ever want to come see the stuff or see the art studio, send me an email, info or howard@dirtdoctor.com, and say you're interested in it. I'll get back with you and talk about how it can work. I think those were the main things that I had to talk to you about today. We're getting some rain here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was able to get fertilizer and some azomite out in some areas to be able to catch the rain. But if you missed it, one of the things you shouldn't be frustrated about, with the organic program, you can literally put out the materials, the soil amendments, the fertilizer type products any month of the year. For those of you who want to stay real strict with the organic program that I recommend, we're still in that window for the first major fertilization of the year. I was telling somebody asking me about tomato fertilization a couple of days ago, something that I like to bring up. If you have a feed store or farm store that you deal with and they have in stock or can get you alfalfa pellets or alfalfa meal, that's as good an organic fertilizer as you can use. It's fantastic. It's good for potted plants. It's good for herbs, vegetables, landscape plants. One of the best tomato growers I've ever been around. She and her husband used nothing but alfalfa pellets as their fertilizer. Had great success with it. Let's see what else I needed to tell you about that. I will put that technique about cutting into stumps with a chainsaw. Anytime you use a chainsaw, you guys just be real careful. But that is a pretty good technique, cutting into the stump one direction and then another direction, going real deep. After doing that a little bit and then putting the saltpeter, the potassium nitrate on it, or the molasses, would be a good way to go, and you wouldn't even have to dig the stump all the way out. He recommended just keep going down and take it below grade. But if you just really do a bunch of cross cuts in it, get a lot of aeration to it, and put the molasses or the saltpeter in there to kill it quickly, that would be a good way to go as well. Different techniques, whatever works best for you. Well, that's pretty much what I had for you today. The interior plants that people ask me about, simple recommendation on them. The only thing I recommend is Garrett juice as your fertilizer, and that goes from aglaonemas and sansevieria, the easiest things in the world to grow, up to the more difficult things to grow, like orchids and that sort of thing. I told you earlier that changing the orchids out from the peat moss over to bark is a good thing to do, and you'll really stabilize your orchids and have a long-lasting plant, a lot of flowers coming back over and over again, especially if you fertilize with Garrett juice. And you can fertilize the foliage, a little spot spraying, spritz it with you can use a quart container like this. I'll put an ounce of Garrett juice, a jigger of Garrett juice, in that much water, a quart of water, in a spray bottle. You may have seen some of the social media things that I've done, Instagram and Facebook, and some of those things. We've shown how to treat seed, and that's how I do it. I put the compost tea into water, spritz the seed, no matter how big the seed are, whether they're buckeyes. I've been giving buckeyes out to a lot of people, Mexican buckeyes from my front yard. But treat those seed with the Garrett juice before you plant them, and then drench the area, the bed where you have planted them, and you'll see germination better than you've ever seen. You'll have quicker germination, more even germination, and you will you'll get into production quicker. So give that a shot, and plant a bunch of stuff from seed. Seed's inexpensive. Plant some now, save some, plant a little more later on. Plant some transplants also. Mix your plants up, mix your flowers up. That looks like some of my paintings when you do that. In other words, don't just have a solid bed of one thing, a solid bed of something else. It's okay to do that, but if you mix plants together, you'll see something really interesting. They kind help each other almost. And I think it helps with the beneficial insects and things like that as well, and gives you some real good ramped up production. So anyway, enjoy your gardens, whatever you're doing. Hope you're doing the natural organic techniques. If you aren't yet, come on in. The water's fine. If you're already on board, enjoy those healthy gardens. And I'll see you next time.